In our second example, we need to identify the flight path or the equation of a football that's flying through the air. So a player kicks a football that's held 0.5 meters above the ground. Okay, and then the ball reaches a maximum height of 30 meters at a horizontal distance of 18 meters from the player. So probably a punter kicking the ball. So if we just quickly draw a rough sketch of what this might look like, it'll help us to get a better sense of what to label. Okay, so we know that the ball is going to start. Okay, so but this here represents distance. Okay, and this part here is height. We know that the ball, it starts at 0.5 meters above the ground. Okay, so 0.5 meters here. So this point is 0.5. Okay, so it's traveled 0 uh, meters, away from the punter at the time of the kick. Okay, it tells us that the football is going to reach a maximum height of 30 meters at a horizontal distance of 18 meters from the player. So this is going to be in a parabola. So it's going to fly up in the air and then come back down. Okay. It reaches a maximum height of 30 meters. Okay. So maximum height of 30 meters, 18 meters from the player. Okay. That means that this position right here is going to be 18, 30. Okay. 30 represents the height. Distance represents, or 18 represents the distance. Okay, so now we actually have 2 points, and we need to figure out the quadratic relation or the equation for this particular uh, situation. So we know that all quadratic equations can be written in vertex form, and vertex form is y is equal to a x minus h squared plus k. We know what the where the vertex is, so we know what the h value is. The h value is positive 18. We know that the k value is 30. Okay, and we actually have another point on the parabola right here where the ball is initially kicked. We know that that point is 0, 0.5. So we actually have an x coordinate of 0 and a y coordinate of 0.5. So those 4 pieces of information are really helpful to us because we can substitute those into the vertex form of the quadratic equation and use that to solve for a. Okay, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to now substitute my known values into this equation. So I know that y is equal to 0.5. I don't know what a is. I know that x is going to be 0. My h value is 18. And then my k value is positive 30. Okay. So first thing I want to do is I want to try and simplify the bracket. And I'm going to go through and try and simplify as much of this as I can and then move things over to isolate the a value. So 0.5 is equal to a. I'm going to deal with the bracket first. So 0 minus 18 is negative 18. And that's still squared. Next thing that I need to do is I actually need to get rid of my my exponent here. So 0.5 is equal to a, and negative 18 squared is actually 324. Okay, so now there's nothing else to simplify. What I need to do now is start moving things over to the other side of the equal sign so that I can get the a value all by itself. So I'm going to use my reverse bedmas skills, and I'm going to move over my addition and subtraction stuff and then isolate a. So if I use bedmas in reverse, okay, I know that I need to get rid of some addition. I also need to get rid of some multiplication. Okay. So in order to do that, to get rid of the positive 30 on both sides, I'm going to subtract 30 from both sides. So 0.5 minus 30 is equal to negative 29.5. And that's going to equal 342A. Those two things are equivalent. And now I want to get A all by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to divide both sides by 324. So I'm going to divide both sides by 324. That's going to tell me that the A value is actually negative 0.09 approximately. Okay, so now I know that my A value is negative 0.09. Okay, so now I've got an H value, a K value, and an A value. And I can use those things to actually come up with the final equation, because I need to graph the quadratic relation that makes this tick. So I'm going to say that y is equal to negative 0.09 times x. My H value is positive, so that means I have to write it as a negative, plus 30. Okay, and so I now have an equation that I can use to continue to solve. Okay, so using the algebra can be very, very useful to us. As we continue down to complete the second part, it says what's the horizontal distance from the player that the football hits the ground? So in this instance, we have an equation now. Y is equal to negative 0.09 times x minus 18 squared plus 30. And if the ball hits the ground, and that's the key, what is the height of the ball when it hits the ground? Well, when it hits the ground, the height equals 0. And height in this instance is represented by the y coordinate. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute in 0 into this equation, and then I'm going to solve. So 0 is equal to negative 0.09 times x minus 18 plus 30. So now I need to try and get x all by itself. Unfortunately, x right now is surrounded by a whole bunch of other things, and I can't simplify this any further. So what I need to do is actually use, again, my reverse Bedmes skills. So in order to isolate the x, I need to peel away everything on the right-hand side of that equal sign until there's only x left. So I know that I have to get rid of some addition. I know that there's... Oh, I'm missing something here. I know that there's some multiplication to get rid of. I know that there's an exponent to get rid of. I know there's some brackets to get rid of too. So there's all kinds of things that I need to eventually strip away from this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by getting rid of the addition. Okay, and so I've got plus 30 hanging out here on the right-hand side. So this is the first thing that I'm going to deal with. So I'm going to actually subtract 30 from both sides, because the opposite of plus 30 is negative 30. It's subtracting 30 from both sides. So negative 30 equals negative 0.09 x minus 18 all squared. And so I've moved that over. So now that I've dealt with my addition, the next thing that I have to deal with is any multiplication. Well, there is multiplication, and it's happening right here between the negative 0.09 and the stuff that's in the brackets. So I'm going to actually divide both sides here by negative 0.09. Okay. So when I divide negative 30 divided by negative 0.09. It's going to give me a rather large number. It gives me 333.33. Okay, and that leaves me with x minus 18 all squared. Okay, so now I've dealt with my multiplication. So now I got to get rid of this exponent. So on the right-hand side, I've got a bracket that's all being squared. So the opposite operation of squaring something is actually doing the square root. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to square root both sides. Okay, and so when I square root both sides, I get approximately 18.26 is equal to x minus 18. And then I want to get x all by itself, which means that I have to add 18 to both sides. Okay? And so if I add 18 to both sides, I end up with 36.26. So that means that the ball is actually going to hit the ground after 36.26 seconds. So therefore, .26 seconds. Okay. So again, making use of your algebra skills will be really important in order to solve a lot of these questions.